Okay, let's. You know where I'm going with this. Come on, guys. You know where I'm going with this, and ladies too. What I tell you about Freddie Gibbs? I mean, I told you I could see this shit a mile away a lot of the times, man. Let's go. Turn up. I ain't fucking with these. I'm talking to a lame nigga. See, walking with a lame. It's a lame. Talking to a lame nigga. I ain't fucking with these lame niggas. Talking with these lame niggas. Anyway. That's not chilling with these niggas. Trying to fuck these lame bitches. With these lame bitches trying to fuck the fame bitch. Okay, now, speaking of lames, let's talk about Freddie Gibbs. I hate that I was right about this, but ultimately, I told you so dramas. I don't want to say that I told you so, but again, I've been listening to rap long enough where I can see a lame a mile away. You know? Now, a lot of what the girl is saying, let me just break it down very, very briefly for those of y'all who want to know. So essentially, Freddie Gibbs' ex-baby moms, or soon to be baby mother, but ex-girlfriend, is sort of exposing him as being this like lying, sort of manipulative, sort of ugly inside individual who doesn't sleep and the whole nine, right? Like, and how essentially, he pretty much used her image for clout to get, his rollout to come up, the whole nine, right? Obviously, he's had previous relationship with other kids, and how he basically kept telling her he wanted to have a kid, and then once she got pregnant, basically dipped on her and was like, I don't want you to have this kid or whatever, and just essentially dipped on her. And she's been out here trying to hold down his image, while also, forking out money, paying for it, his lifestyle, and she's been used essentially, right? She thought he was about that life because he makes songs constantly about how he's about that life, and he's always talking that Vice Lord bullshit, but then, will get beat down in various states. And she's like, what's going on? Why is there all this beef? He's instigating all this beef, but continually getting beat down. And I'm sure he's doing it because it's a financial thing. It makes sense for him. He can sell his music to his very young white fan base, which she talks about as well. Because we know this. We know that Freddie Gibbs appeals to a very young white fan base. It's obvious. Niggas don't listen to Freddie Gibbs. Come on, man. You know what I'm saying? We're not out here pumping his music. We don't give a fuck about him. You know what I'm saying? He makes that hood tourist, goofy kind of music that a white casual can get into. It's good for them. You know what I'm saying? It's non-threatening for them. You know what I'm saying? But we don't care about him. And by we, I mean brothers who really love rap don't give a fuck about Freddie Gibbs, honestly. So now here's the real issue I have with the whole thing, because you're gonna say, well, Tochi, I thought you have said that you don't care about the personal lives of these rappers. And you're right, I really don't in general. I like music, I take music for what it is, right? I'm not really invested in what a rapper does in his personal time. And to add to that, there are rappers that I'm a fan of, I'm sure, that may or may not be living the most, sort of decent lives, right? Shout out to Freddie Gibbs. I'm sure he can relate to this record. So that's not really where I'm getting at it from. But let me sort of backtrack also to explain why I'm not surprised to hear all this stuff about Freddie Gibbs and him having these emotional issues. Because to me, I think it's very much in his music. A lot of times, you read on comments, the very few Freddie Gibbs fans that exist, they'll be like, yeah, but he makes fire music though. No, he doesn't. He never has. Okay? Stop it. I think we could try to end that line now. Okay? His music has always been trash. I've gone into depth about why it's trash. It's ugly music in the grand scheme of things. And it's interesting because the way that Freddie Gibbs' baby moms is portraying him, which doesn't seem like that far-fetched, honestly, given what we've heard about Freddie Gibbs in the past and how he clout chases and things. She portrays him as a pretty ugly guy internally. I'm not talking about physically. I don't care about his looks. I'm saying in terms of how he views himself, how he views the world, how he views his relationships, his kids, his baby moms. he seems like an ugly individual. And yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that his music is pretty ugly in the grand scheme of things. Now, to get to that about a person's personal life, it's always going to be interesting because rap is very different from other genres. And I'm about to say something that I'm sure people will end up parroting because that's usually how it is. But follow my logic here. The big difference between rap and every other genre, I would argue, for the most part, is that rap is like the vocal element of rap is speech based, okay? As opposed to other genres like pop music, country, rock, where it's it's singing based. Why is that important? Well, let me explain why that's important to me. So the thing about singing is that singing is communal, in my opinion. Like, we can all get together and sing a song, right? You know, typically there's a national anthem. People get together and sing a national anthem. There's something very communal about singing. I might have talked about this before. But the point is that songs are not individual necessarily. They kind of represent a whole group of people, right? So, you know, that's the power of a great song, really, is that it represents multiple people all at the same time. It's not really about a person in particular. It's about us as a whole, and we're all in this together. So that's why pop music always has this singing element to it, because ultimately pop music is about social cohesion, in my honest opinion. So, where rap is different, very different from, I would argue, almost any other genre before it, at least from what I've seen in terms of the vocal element, is that rap doesn't really sing. Rap is about speech. It's about talking. When was the last time you saw a group of people get together in a group and just recite a speech over and over again, word for word, all in unison? It almost doesn't happen, right? I will say there is one instance where it kind of happens, and I'll get to that in a second. But the point is that speech is personal. It's conversational, right? So it's direct. And there is a certain power about that. So the point is that if it's personal, that's why ultimately, when you're listening to a rapper, it's hard to divorce like a person's personal life in a way. Like, you're always going to find that interest in that person's life in a sense when you really like a rapper, or even if you don't necessarily like a rapper, because again, there is a blurring, right, that occurs there. It is a little bit of a kind of like, where does the person's personal life end and where does their music begin? In rap in particular. Like I said, an artist who is a singer primarily can just sing a song. That's why it doesn't matter if a song is written by the artist or not, because they're making something that's communal. Who gives a shit? I'm a singer. You come to me with a song that's already well written. I sing it for our people. We all enjoy it, right? But if you come to me with raps and I talk it, right, to an audience, now it's a little bit kind of confusing, because it's like, well, do you really feel that way? Because you're expressing what you think. Speech is personal, right? So I'm expressing someone else's thoughts. Now, in politics, we have speech writers and things like that. We don't expect our politicians to say exactly what they think. I mean, it's kind of understood, right? That they're a politician, they're speaking. And again, in this particular instance, they're speaking to a large group of people. So we understand that, hey, this is something that relates to all of us. So you can have a speechwriter. That's totally fine. We understand that shit. But even then, that's a little bit blurred too, because it's not exactly like we know who these speechwriters are, right? It's not like, you know, we don't really, you know, people in political circles know who these people are. But what I'm trying to say is that when it comes to conversation, when it comes to speech, it's different, right? The element of it is the personal and the authentic, right? So that's why if someone gives me bars and I spit those bars word for word, it's a little questionable, because then it's like, well, it's not my personal thoughts. And if it's not my personal thoughts, isn't it better that I just sing the shit? Because at least I'm not lying to people about it being my personal thoughts. You know what I'm saying? So rap is by its very nature going to, get people interested in who you are as a person, because it's very individual. Individuality is a huge aspect of rap, and it always comes out in rap because, again, just by marketing and the music itself, the way it's structured, leads itself to that kind of question, right? So what does that mean? What that means for Freddie Gibbs is that if Freddie Gibbs, in my opinion, is a corny individual, his music is going to be corny 9 times out of 10 because rap has a certain way of exposing a shade of who you are. Now, it doesn't obviously portray everything about who you are, but is it really any surprise that when we look at rappers in general and how their lives have ended up, it's not really a surprise when you look at the kind of music they made as to how it ended up. And I'm talking, unfortunately, usually about tragedy, right? But even in general, like you look at Jay, Nas, these guys made intelligent music. They said intelligent things. You know what I'm saying? Like they're preoccupied with it. Does it really surprise you that both of them have gone on to be very well, successful and do intelligent things in general? Now, I'm not saying that Jay-Z behind closed curtains can't be doing some crazy wild shit or Nas, but in general, these are guys who are artists at their core, and they seem to be that way. And like they have a certain personality, they have a certain thing, right? Like Jay has always pretty much rapped about money and his obsession with money and hustler culture and trying to make it in this world. And he's gone on to continue to do that. Nas has always been sort of anthropological and interested in sort of communities, the hood, like how like decisions, made today, reflect decisions that are, and things that happen the next day, cause and effect. Like Nas has been interested in those things for a long time. So it doesn't surprise me that as time has gone along, he's become more of this sort of hip hop spokesperson to a certain degree, where he's talking about different communities and things like that. Like, I mean, again, your personality, you can't run from it much in rap. Like in singing world, in genres outside of rap, we can know nothing about who you are, and we can really not care about who you are, because ultimately you're communal. You're doing something that is just kind of a song for everybody. But once you start rapping, automatically I go, okay, well, who are you? Right? So if I sense something is off in the music, there's a big chance that there's probably something off in that person as a whole, right? That's all it is. Now, I was going to say that the only place where you really hear people recite speech in a group setting is church. And rap has that religious kind of spiritual thing to it to a certain degree, which I think is interesting. But again, that's someone from an authority coming down and everyone's reciting. It's not quite the same thing. You know what I mean? But again, musically, you don't really see people gather around, or even in regular life outside of something religious like that, where people gather around to recite speech all in unison. It just doesn't really happen. I would say that, look, my last thoughts on this whole Freddie Gibbs thing is obviously I'm not a fan. You could tell I have a bias against his music because his music to me is not very good. And it never has been. All this time he's been rapping, he still doesn't have one dope song. A lot of people might say, oh, he's, or not a lot of people, but maybe his fans might say, he's got a classic album. He doesn't have a single song that anyone who doesn't listen to Freddie Gibbs would go, yeah, that's really fire. He doesn't have one. Okay, he has this particular audience, he has a niche, and it works for him, and that's okay. But it's ugly music to me, it's corny as fuck to me, and I was able to sense that miles away because there's something about it. It seemed like a clout, like the kind of music a guy who's trying too hard, a clout chaser would make. And it doesn't surprise me whatsoever that he ended up trying to, do the clout chaser thing, getting into beefs, dating a low budget and Amber Rose, and I'd say that as no disrespect to the girl, but clearly that's what he was going for, right? She kind of goes at this in the interview. I suggest watching it because it's kind of an insight in a way into the mind games and sort of the perception things that rappers love to play, right? It's interesting how she claims that the first thing when they started to talk that he had said to her was that his manager had said, oh, we would, we look good together. We would look good together. Yeah, that's how a lot of these niggas are, man. They're renting girls. Because again, it's all a game. When you get older, you start to notice these things, and you don't pay as much attention to it. When you're younger and impressionable, you look at a rapper and you go, "Oh my God, he's got a bad bitch. He must be winning. I should be like him." But you don't realize that there's all kinds of stuff at play. First of all, that girl might be a loser like herself. Let's be honest here. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times, that's why you can't really focus on people and their relationships and things like that, because you don't know what's going on in their relationships. You honestly have no idea. Their relationships could be amazing. It could be complete trash. All this time that Fit Mami or whatever was talking about how, she was dating Freddie Gibbs. I'm sure it looked rosy on the outside, but she was saying that even for her, she was struggling and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, she was obviously trying to portray an image. And this is what social media is about today. It's all about portraying an image. That's why I don't really give a fuck about what people are doing in their relationships and all that nonsense. Because it's all fake. And I see it for what it is in the grand scheme of things. You know what I'm saying? So don't get caught up in all this shit. I mean, I think that's really the long story short, is that you just got to be happy on your own terms. Try not to be a follower in a sense. You know, you have to just do what you think is right and makes sense. All right? Don't believe the hype.